The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
The simple fact remains, Obamacare is the law of the land and will remain the law of the land as long as Barack Obama is President of the United States and as long as I'm Senate Majority Leader.
Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid on the floor of the Senate just a little while ago saying that any bill that comes to the Senate to defund Obamacare is dead as far as he's concerned. So where does this go from here? Let's bring in our panel. It's our expanded panel tonight. Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume, Tucker Carlson, host of Fox and Friends Weekend, A.B. Stoddard, associate editor of The Hill, and of course syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Harry Reid, Brit, says this only delays the inevitable. Is he right?
He may be. The measure to defund Obamacare and keep the rest of the government open has come to the Senate. What he intends to do is to strip out the provisions to defund Obamacare and send the bill back to the House. He probably can do that. And in order to try to block him from doing that, Ted Cruz finds himself and his colleagues who support him in the position of trying to stop consideration of a bill that they actually want to see passed as it is. Mm-hmm. It's allowed all these Republicans who are afraid of a government shutdown to vote against Cruz and company and, in effect, give Reid what he wants and send the matter back to the House. And to some extent, he's let them off the hook, so that's where we are.
You're going to cloture vote schedule for Wednesday morning. A.B., any way that the Republicans can cobble together 41 votes on this?
No. The Republicans don't want to shut the government down. The Republicans who think that Obamacare is so unpopular that it's a really potent issue for them that they're on the offense on heading into the 2014 midterm elections don't want the narrative to become Republicans are obstructionists who shut the government down. So if there was any way, a path to enough votes on the House and Senate side to overturn a presidential veto, they would be on board. But he is not going to get his Senate colleagues on board.
Do you agree, Charles, that with all this rhetoric that we'll shut the government down if need be, but we don't want to? They really don't want to shut the government down. When push comes to shove, they'll fold?
I mean, no rational Republican wants to. I'm not even sure the irrational Republicans want to. The entire history of shutdowns either the opposition is the one that takes the hit. On Obamacare, the Republicans are winning. They're winning everywhere. Even the labor unions are up in arms against Obamacare. Why would you want to step in the way? It's the oldest adage in politics. When the other guy's committing suicide, get out of the room. That they ought to let this sail through. And remember one thing, the continuing resolution, in other words, the bill to fund the government, is a success for Republicans because it includes the cuts that are in the sequester that Obama wanted to undo. So we're now starting from a new lower baseline, which is going to mean less spending, which is what Republicans have been trying to get for years and years. So let this pass. And then if you want to have another struggle over this, start with the debt ceiling and try to get what you can.
Tucker, do you believe that Harry Reid will simply cut the defunding of Obamacare out of the continuing resolution and pass what the House passed, or will they throw a bunch more money back?
They have the authority. Basically, the Democrats have the authority, absolutely have the authority to prevent the repeal or the defunding of Obamacare. That's just the fact. Charles is also right that people understand Republicans are skeptical of government, therefore they get blamed if there's a government shutdown. Republicans get this too.
But a lot of Republicans will tell you, hey, 1995 wasn't that bad. We picked up a couple of seats in the Senate, we lost a couple in the House
and then
the next
you lost
year.
the presidency.
But look, here's what it's really about.
Was that ever a question?
This is about a civil war within the Republican Party. I mean, how many Republican primary voters trust the leadership of the Republican Party in the House or Senate? The fact that Ted Cruz, who has been there for 8.5 months, literally, he's only been there 8.5 months. He's driving the conversation. Certainly in the Senate, he's influencing outcome of things in the House. He is at the center of this. How did that happen? Where's Mitch McConnell on this? I mean, it tells you a lot about intra-Republican politics and how they get stuck with this hot potato. I agree with Charles. Why is this a Republican issue? They didn't pass Obamacare.
All right, let's focus in on Ted Cruz for a second, and let's play what he said in the Senate just a little while ago.
I believe this week will be a critical week for the United States Senate, where every one of us, and I hope to see Republicans and Democrats stand together and to say, setting aside partisan differences, we have an obligation to the people of our states. And Obamacare isn't working.
Brett, you and I were talking about this morning. He is driving the rhetorical bus for the Republicans, but is anybody on board?
Well, he's kind of Mr. Outside in the sense that what his following is minuscule in the Congress. It is very big among many Republicans and conservatives around the country. There's an array of radio talk show hosts who have influenced, no question about it, who are with him on this and on a lot of other things. He is the new star of the Republican right, no question about it. And he's dazzlingly articulate and so on. He really doesn't quite know his way around the Senate yet, and that doesn't hurt him at all with such people. They think that, these inside guys have been here too long and they're corrupt and they're terrible and they surrender to Obama.
Hurts when it comes to procedure.
Well, it hurts when it comes to a situation like this where he's now in a kind of a dead end in the Senate. Now, the best thing that could happen would be for this thing to go back to the House and have the House take defund out and put in delay and send that back to the Senate. Delay, which the President has already granted for some parts of this measure, would be harder to resist. We'll see where that goes. I have my doubts, but
a lot of people, AB, voted that Ted Cruz had the worst week in Washington last week because it was taking a lot of fire from his Republican colleagues, particularly in the House.
Well, Britt is right. That only emboldens him and makes him more appealing to his grassroots supporters. He has now 1.5 million signatures on a petition. He's grown his brand, his donor list, his email list. He doesn't care what establishment Republicans in Washington think of him and whether or not he knows his way around Senate procedure. He doesn't want to be of the Senate. He doesn't want to know how it works. He's not interested. He didn't come there to legislate. And so he is all out for Ted Cruz. He threw the House Republicans under the bus, and their response was, here's your bill. We've defunded Obamacare. See what you can do. And he admitted within 36 hours, it might take a few more elections for us to actually reach this goal. But he really snookered the grassroots by telling them it was possible.
Charles, where do you come down on all this?
Look, Cruz has obviously helped himself. Unless he fails, which of course he will have hurt the Republican Party. So I'm not sure how much he cares because he thinks, obviously he is a rising star and this is all about him. He knows it's not going to succeed. There's no way it will, at least the idea of stripping out Obamacare, but this is his issue. It reminds me a bit about the filibuster that was conducted by Rand Paul. It was a brilliant piece of political theater. It didn't change anything, but it was well done.
And it was unexpected, too.
And it put him on the scene. It looked dramatic. It had shades of Jimmy Stewart to it, and then he became a contender overnight. So this makes Cruz a contender overnight.
A lot of people are saying Cruz is a contender, though he hasn't tipped his hat which way he may go in 2016.
Well, I mean, there are questions about, he of course was born in Canada, about his eligibility, but all that. But I mean, bottom line, as far as I can tell, is he and a couple other people of his generation understand the modern rules of celebrity and power way better than anyone in the Senate. I mean, his colleagues are looking on and saying, well, you don't understand Senate procedure. You just got here. You're never going to get this through. Cruz knows that. But that's not what he's aiming for. I'm not sure, even if he loses, he loses. I think this is, unless he really screws up, I think he's going to become a star out of this.
I spoke to him not too long ago, and he said that he believed the only way you could win this would be to stir the kind of grassroots sentiment against Obamacare that emerged on gun control. And he and Mike Lee and others in the Senate are leading an effort to try to do that. They've got ads up, they're holding rallies and so forth. So far, it does not appear they've come anywhere near succeeding on that. If he's able eventually to do that, he will emerge as the leading Republican in the country. I have my doubts as to whether he can do it, but that's what he's trying to do.
It's also win-win in another way. If he doesn't win the presidency, he can always become Prime Minister of Canada.
And he would improve that country.
Which for Charles, in Charles's book, that's a big win. Let's leave it there. Coming up next, President Obama at the United Nations with his hands full. We'll be right back.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.